In this special edition of SmartBites, Jawahar, Sudhir and Vivek share their wisdom on how to reinvent oneself in these rapidly changing times of technology and management expectations. Jawahar, traditionally specialist test teams have been there to validate the key non-functional aspects like availability, capacity, etc. How are new technologies changing the way we test non-functional aspects of large systems?
So obviously there is a team of people who would ensure that my functionality is correct, right, under normal as well as stress situations. But when it comes to non-functionals like can I give you a 5 nines of availability, which is probably, for example, 6 minutes of downtime planned and unplanned in a year. I think we still need those special guys who actually understand what is going behind the construction, because the way you test is also going to be depending upon how it has been constructed. Actually, it's I wouldn't say it's completely a black box testing. So for example, a HA is realized in a specific pattern. There are patterns like well architected framework available, and that is what the construction people will follow. The validation people will have to actually simulate those conditions and see whether HA is achieved, whether 5 nines are available, right? Availability, disaster recovery, scaling, for example, does it work according to the prescription that I have actually, right? So the specialist test teams would have to actually kind of get to know what is happening behind the scenes, and then come with mechanisms to test and validate and assure me that it is what you wanted to build, and this is what it is doing.
Sudhir, what are the new expectations from the senior management of companies today?
Of course, leadership is key, but more than organization and people leadership, I think owning a substantial part of work is also needed. Some part of the organization you can have an oversight, but you must also get your hands dirty by owning an area where there are no managers and you directly own it, because that keeps you grounded and also keeps you develop empathy for your organization as to what they go through. The expectations, here are the expectations. One is be able to understand what your team is going through. Show up in incidents, show up in incident reviews, show up in customer escalations, and also I think as a self-development exercise, keep learning newer technologies and catch up with what's going on in the industry, and always have the curiosity to look at everything from a metrics-driven approach.
Vivek, as a test professional, how should I reinvent myself?
See, the trends which are really taking over the software development, the whole software space. One is agile, right? People want to be able to deliver faster and with a lot more flexibility, and that impacts the tester as well, primarily because irrespective of whatever may be said, the tester is the gatekeeper of quality for the end customer and the representative of the end customer, irrespective of trying to say quality belongs to everybody, build quality in, etc., etc., etc. The fact of the matter is that there is one person who has to advocate for the end customer, and that person is still the tester and is likely to be into the future as well. So what the tester needs to understand is that he has one big constraint, and that is time. That's the external constraint. And even when he has time, or in whatever limited time he has, his internal challenge is to make sure that attention is focused on the more critical ideas. So it's not enough to do the generic things or to do what has been done before, but it has to be something where you spend a little bit of time understanding what is required and make sure that you put focus and attention to address that area. And I think that's the big challenge, right? So you can try and squeeze as much time as you want if attention is being paid in the right places, you will still get the best bang for the buck. So I think that's where we need to look at. We need to understand what's happening in the world outside. We need to be able to focus and plan our work and execute to the plan in whatever limited time we have. So that's the old risk-based testing, the old whatever you might want to call it, those different names for the different things, but that is still your best bet if you really want to look at. The second thing is, as I said before, we need to understand more from a business perspective. We need to abstract our work to a level at which things are rapidly built and rapidly thrown away. So we need to get to a use and throw kind of a situation, wherein you are not spending time and effort in creating the last detailed step and documenting it, but you are letting machines do that, and you are abstracting yourself to the level where you are talking to the business analyst and you are helping him make sure that his requirement is actually getting implemented, rather than trying to see what exactly is the input, what is the output, whether it's matching line by line. You need to get beyond that. Otherwise you won't get the speed and you will not be able to focus your attention on where it needs to go. Secondly, like we said, development is becoming framework driven and just a bunch of things being pulled together. Micro services, right? We keep hearing about that. Microservices is the next step, or it's already here. But interactions between microservices is unpredictable in the end-to-end 100% coverage scenario. You can never be sure how these things will work in a real-life deployment where you lose power, you lose battery, your CPU spikes for some reason, your OS upgrades without telling you it's about to do that. All these things are real-life things which happen, right? You switch from Wi-Fi to 4G to 5G to 3G to 2G, and suddenly your cell phone tower breaks up and you're lost. So all these things, you need to be able to evaluate, you need to be able to see where the risk lies, and you need to be able to focus on that and make sure that you are putting your attention to those areas, right? On a more pedestrian level, SDETs are the way to go, right? So for each individual person, they need to understand not only how to test, but they need to understand how to look at their testing in the overall space. They need to be able to get to a stage where they are able to look at code and understand what's happening. If it's custom code, so be it. If it is a modularized framework, so be it. If you can understand what each module is going to do, you're able to look at the prototype, functional prototype, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, how it operates. You should be able to understand that. You need to be able to look at an environment and evaluate it. You need to be able to spin up your own VM. You need to understand what containers are. You need to understand how to set them up, right? Set up, deploy application, deploy test cases, execute, and then spin everything down. If you're able to do that, then you are on par and you are in a position to actually add value to yourself.
You started off by saying that in this age of speed, attention is probably terribly important.
Yeah.
You just need the extreme focus. Technology is so dispersed, so obviously I need to kind of understand the overall context far deeper than what it is.
Yeah.
And thirdly, of course, I have to abstract well enough and not get lost in the details.
Yes.
And fourthly, to be able to handle this flux, I must be able to do much more speedily, so which means I work with a certain level of abstraction and not work on the details, but constantly morph and change.